As an educator, I've been ruminating on the arrival of ChatGPT since November. That being said, as a teacher of future teachers and current teachers, I feel like it's time for me to not only rethink the classroom, but to help others rethink the classroom. And that's how this all began. When I look at the world right now, I know that students can use AI to generate writing, to create videos, and to generate images. That being said, many of those things were the way that I was using creativity in the classroom. So, what does that look like with AI? Should it change? Should my expectations be different? When I look at all that's out there and available, we've talked about ChatGPT, Perplexity, Hey Friday, Steve AI, Stock IMG, DALI, Quillbot, Jasper, Ginny AI, and of course the one that's in the news like crazy right now, ChatGPT. The question is, what's next? So I have to rethink because it's not going away. So as I'm thinking about what does that mean for my classroom, I think that I have to play within the boundaries of students having access to Chat GPT or other AI platforms. I think that there are ways that a smart kid can work around pretty much any AI checker that's out there at this point. So I've got to play within those boundaries. So what I'm starting to think about is helping students think more critically, and how do I check for that kind of learning? So a well-worded question can help students be more analytical and thoughtful in their problem solving. Asking that question as a starter for a paper might be one of the best ways to make sure I'm getting really good original work on their thinking, if that's what's important to me in that moment. One of the other ways is considering the use of mind mapping. At this point, I haven't seen any AI that actually does mind mapping. And when I'm talking about mind mapping, the circles with concepts that have arrows leading to another, connecting things together. Mind mapping is a way for your students to show you their learning and that they're critically thinking about how this impacts that. Maybe my role in this is helping them start with a concept and get to another concept and figure out the middle. Is it okay if they use ChatGPT? Possibly. But if not, having them do that in front of me with paper and pencil might be a good way for me to see that they can critically think about the learning taking place in my classroom. Another way might be to embed classroom discussions into the writing. So maybe I have a subject matter expert come and they have to quote that expert in the writing. Maybe I have a debate that happens in class and they have to talk about the debate itself in terms of the writing that we are doing. By embedding things that are not available for AI to get to, I am making sure that students are thinking critically about what we're doing in class, even though they might be looking up for part of their paper or whatever, they might be using AI to find it. They have to put it all together with the thread of classroom discussions. Another way that I'm a big proponent, another thing I'm a big proponent of is just student check-ins. If I want to know if a specific student understands something, or if I want to know if it's their work, I need to check in with them on a regular basis. I need to pull them aside and not only ask them what they know, but how do you know that? How do you get there? So that you can learn that student's voice and learn when you're doing your reading of the things that they're turning in, what to expect from them in terms of what they're turning in. I think it's important for us to ask students to reflect on their learning, not just on giving me a paper on a certain topic, but reflect on how that impacts them. It helps them to look at areas they can improve on. They could even use ChatGPT or something like it um, to use a rubric and then go ahead and figure out how they can be better at what they're trying to say. They can analyze current events because most AI at this point does not do a good job on current events. So I could say, hey, what you saw that happened in the news this weekend, how does that relate to the lynchings that we saw on the Market Street Bridge in Chattanooga, Tennessee? Combine those thoughts together and tell me how they are like and how they are dissimilar. And then all of a sudden, I know that their answer can't come straight from an AI driven generated device. If you decide, hey, I can't fight this, which is a worthy thing to say, then have an expectation that your student has to have a paragraph on how they use ChatGPT in their assignment. If you do that, it lets them know A, that you know it exists, and B, you're showing them how to truly give credit where credit is due. One of the things that I want to delve into more myself is relating unrelated things. I recently had a lesson plan where I am teaching educational technology courses. I wanted the primary learning goal to be about the ISTE standard number 2 for educators, which is the educator as a leader. I wanted the secondary thing to be that there would be an artifact that would show that the students are being empowered. And then I wanted the students to apply the SAMR model to that artifact. Some of those things are very nuanced, and wrapping my head around what that looked like as a good lesson plan was hard for me to begin with. But when I put it in ChatGPT and asked it to make me a lesson plan, while it wasn't exactly something that I ran with, it became something that I could, from that moment, get more creative with along the way. You can have your students create study guides with your help. The age level is supposed to be 18, but what if you did it together? You created that study guide. It might help everybody involved. As a teacher, you could customize assignments. If you have a student with an IEP, you could make that assignment, the directions or the rubric or the artifacts going along with it, at a certain reading level so that it helps the students. And it didn't take you any extra time to get it there because you could very easily have generative AI do that for you. You yourself can improve your writing through revisions if you add it to a chat GPT, or you could have it create rubrics for you or adjust the rubrics that you've already made. Or you could have students upload what they've done into it based on a rubric that you give them, and then have them ask the chat GPT to make revisions on that. And what does that look like? Do you agree with them? Do you disagree with them? In Google Docs, you have the ability to actually go in and write comments. You can have them kind of keep up with what the revisions were and whether they think they're acceptable revisions and why. Keep asking your students why they know what they know, why they believe what they know, and how do you know what you know? For you, it can actually help you with grading and feedback because it makes it more timely. Timely feedback is important. So I will say this, when using it for feedback, the examples I've seen, some of them I'm not been a big fan of, but if it means that a student that day or the next day then has feedback that they can adjust their writing for you, and in the past it was taking you 3 or 4 days, to gain that momentum and help them to also think critically about, is this truly good feedback, could be very beneficial to both you and your students, and giving you more space to do things that feel more critical in the moment. I think whatever you choose to do, whatever method you choose to adopt in AI in your classroom, whether it's I don't want you to use it, or here's how I want you to use it, or hey, we're all going to use it. I think you as a teacher have to think critically about that. You're also going to have to make some room for maybe different ways of teaching in your classroom. If you're not doing things like station rotation, where you're doing the check ins with your student, where you're doing more formative assessments, where you're doing quizzes and open-ended questions and group work and small group work, and having them reflect on things that they read, or reflective writing, then these things are going to be important for you to truly know if learning is happening in your classroom, because it's less important that your lesson plan gets done, and more important that your lesson plan gets done and that the learning has happened. It doesn't matter how you get to the end of that learning. What matters is the learning goals that you were striving to achieve through backward planning have happened. I encourage you to look for ways to both embrace things like ChatGPT in your classroom, and also to think critically about it. What are things you're losing? What are things you're gaining? And where is the sweet spot for you as a teacher to develop a classroom that is both responsive to what's happening now and empowering to your students for their future?